the chord progression for Mak'er by Led Zeppelin off of House of the Holy. Going to use this lesson to teach movable F and F minor structures. There's some of the earlier bar chords you can learn. They're used a lot in R&B and funk as well as blues. You'll see them from time to time in rock stuff as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus in on the F chord, and we're going to work on the technique of F. That's a sticking point for a lot of students. I can't tell you how many students over the last couple of decades I've heard they just really struggle with F. With proper technique, it's not as bad as I think everybody makes it out, so you really have to adjust your technique. So let's work about the technique first, and then we'll talk about how to move it around the neck and how to make it minor, and then we'll come back to the song to show you a little easy strumming pattern for Mak'er by House of the Holy. So what we're going to do is I'm going to zoom in on this real quick. So on this F chord, you want to bar the top two strings with your index finger, and you want to be up on the fingertips of your second and third finger. So I've got the 3rd fret, 4th string, 2nd fret, 3rd string, and I'm barring the top two strings with the F. How this works, if your thumb's too high on the neck, you're going to collapse this finger. You get some dead notes in there. We don't want that, so you want to keep your thumb on the back of the neck. You also, from a side view, you don't want to keep your hand in front of the neck with this bend in your wrist and trying to push your hand out like this, because that brings your first finger off the fretboard. You either get a muted or a wrong note in there. You want to be able to lay this finger flat. So what I find generally works best for this F chord is I'm keeping my hand in, like I'm trying to hold a pencil on the bottom of the fretboard. So I'm really close, and I'm kind of just laying that chord in. I'm trying to keep the index finger flat on this first knuckle. Got the fleshy part across both strings, second finger and third finger, and by bringing it in, if you watch how if I collapse that shape, you see how these are flat, like I could set something on top of it, and I've got that clearance below those fingers. If I drop that hand even just slightly, you see those pads of my fingers drop and touch the string below, so you got to roll that wrist in. Now when I say roll, this is kind of hard to get an angle on it, but let me go to a side view here. I'm literally just rolling the hand in, right? I'm not pulling behind, I'm not shoving it out, I'm just rolling it in. So when I roll that in, you get all 4 notes clearly. You want to be close to the frets as you can be. Sometimes that hand stretch is going to take a little bit of development to get the strength, coordination, and the reach. The closer you are to those frets, the clearer those sounds are going to be. If you're far away, you want to start getting close. So some other things that lead to that, besides proper thumb placement on the back of the neck and keeping that palm close to the bottom of the neck, you also notice my fretboard's 45-degree angle. Trying to play this way with that guitar level is going to make that really challenging to pull off. So if you prop that guitar up on your strap or on your leg, and you get that 45-degree angle, that's going to help keep your wrist straight, gives you a lot of reach on this left hand, and that's going to help you achieve that chord as well. From a side view, back out of this real quick. From a side view, a lot of guitar players, when they're sitting, they prop their guitar this way. That's also going to pull your hands against the strings. You don't want to look at your guitar fretboard. It's kind of like typing. You need to learn to find your notes without staring at your fretboard. You can look from time to time, but you don't want to be staring at it. But you sure don't need it this way. You want it perpendicular to the ground, and that's going to allow you to get up on those fingertips. I'll zoom back in on this, like so, right? Not this. As soon as I do that, by tilting that guitar out, that collapses those hands, and now I've got that same problem with my fingers touching those strings. So we want to keep it up on there. So you can work on that in small doses. You know, try to get where you can arpeggiate those chords and get all 4 notes in there. That's going to take a little bit of work. From there, let's take a break on the F chord, and let's talk about moving that shape around on the first string. So I'm going to change screens on you here. Let's take a look at the fretboard. This is your first string. The first string is an E string. I did a lowercase e because that's the skinny string, your first string. The first fret is F. The 3rd fret is G. The 5th fret is A. The 7th fret is B. So far you got the first fret F, and on each dot on your fretboard, G, A, and B. Here's where things change on every instrument. B is next to C, a half step away, which means 1 fret. And then we skip a whole step to D, so we're jumping over the 9th fret. And then a whole step again takes me to the 12th fret. That is the octave of E. At the 12th fret, the whole fretboard starts over again. But we're going to keep it below the 12th fret for today. So how do I move the chords around on the first fret to get all these other chord shapes? Well, we're actually taking the F chord, and in that F chord, the first string is your naming note. It's called the root note. If I want to make that a G chord, we're going to move that up to the 3rd fret. That gives us a G chord or a G note. If I want a C, I'm going to take that all the way up. I'm going to put an 8th next to this one so it reminds you we're on the 8th fret for C. And then we're going to be picking up an A for this song as well. It's going to be an A minor chord, but right now we're just dealing with the A. That's at our 5th fret. So just to cover those notes again, we're going to be playing a C at the 8th fret, an A at the 5th fret, dropping all the way back to F at the 1st fret, and then we're going to pop up to G at the 3rd fret. So let's deal with the major chords first. The major chord is that first finger barring that F chord. See if I can get that a little bigger for you. There we go. So your naming note is this note. If I place that at the 1st fret, I get F major. That's the chord we looked at the start of the lesson. If I want to make G, I'm going to transpose by sliding that same note up to the 3rd fret. Just like so. So you'll see it's a mirror image of the F shape, just moving up to the 3rd fret to make it a G. Let me demonstrate that in person. We're going to take that F chord and move it up 2 frets to G. So F on the 1st string, moving G on the 3rd fret for G 1st string. Still major because this shape is containing the major. Now let's go ahead and knock that C out. If I go back to my diagram, let's go all the way up to C at the 8th fret. So I'm just going to move up to the 8th fret, borrow that same chord shape. See, that's identical. And there's your F structure up at the 8th fret for C. So let's jump back and get that one. We've got the C chord. That's probably going to be a little easier for you because it's tighter together on the fretboard. But you got your F, your G, and your C. So let's talk about A and making it minor. So if I go to A at the 5th fret, there's my A major, but we don't want A major, we want A minor. So how do I do that? Let me zoom in on this. So we're going to take my index finger and we're going to lower the 3rd note. And the theory might get a little deep. Don't worry about the theory. We're more worried about moving this around and getting used to the shapes. But I'm going to lower the major 3rd from the scale. That's the 3rd note. In this case, I've got a C sharp. And I'm going to lower that C sharp to a C, which is called a flatted 3rd, and that creates a minor. You might know that chord. That's the first one from Stairway to Heaven. So there's our minor chord. And you can strum it. If I go back to major, you hear the difference. So that's all we need to do for minors. We're borrowing 3 strings now, keeping that ring finger, and then I've got that 1st string as the A note. That makes A minor. Now later on we can move this shape around. We can make it G minor, we can make it F minor, so forth and so on. So we'll be able to move these around. So let's go ahead and put that A on the chart. So you'll notice now I've got the 5th fret A, borrowing that 1st finger flat across all 3 strings, 1, 2, and 3 at the 5th fret. My ring finger goes on the 5th fret, or sorry, the 7th fret, 4th string to create the minor structure. So we now have an A minor. So if we put the song together for Dire Maker, we have C, walking down to A minor, walking down to G, walking down to F. Sorry, F to G. Let me flip those back over. F, and then going back to the G. So what I'm doing on the strumming pattern, to make this real simple, I'm going down, up, down for each chord. Now that's just a repeating pattern for most of the song. So we're going to play that over and over. So I'll leave that there if you want to get a screenshot of that. That's got your chords you need as well as the strumming pattern. And let's take a look at the strumming pattern. So the strumming pattern. Tilt down a little bit here. So I've got the C chord at the 8th fret with the major structure, and I'm going to go down, up, and then I use my chop to stop there. I'm just taking my palm and cutting it off, and then a down, and I cut it off again. So one more time real slow, down, up, palm mutes it, strum again, and there's another rest. So I have this sound. Now from there I'm going to move to A minor, barring all 3 strings, top 4 strings. Take it all the way down to F, back up to G. Same strumming pattern one more time. I'm using that palm in between to get that punchy sound. So that'll give you the chord progression for Dire Maker by Led Zeppelin. That's also going to be a good work study in getting the F chord and proper technique to be able to play that and get all 4 notes to ring out, and the movable shape. Now we have a G, we have a C, we have an A minor. So remember, all of these chords are movable, so we can do F, G, A, B, C, D, and E for major. We can also do it with minor, F minor, G minor, A minor, B minor, C minor, D minor, and E minor. There's sharps and flats on the fretboard too. We'll talk about that later, but for now that'll give you a lot of options for your major and minor chords. That shows the value of bar chords and the movable nature of chord structures on the guitar. Once you get one shape down, you understand how to move it, and that opens up a whole new realm of possibilities for playing songs in different locations and different voicings. So if you have questions on any of that, feel free to reach out to me. Also, you can reach me at thefretfeed.com is my webpage, and Eric at thefretfeed.com.